Hey there, Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here. Welcome to day 10 of our Get Your Goals annual challenge. Today we're going to start talking about goal frameworks. What's a framework? A framework is just a process or a step-by-step how do we do things, or a different way of framing or looking at something in order to make it easier to remember, more motivating or fun to do. And in the case of goals, we want them to be motivating, fun, achievable, all kinds of things. And we're going to talk about at least a dozen different frameworks over the next several days. We're going to practice setting a goal. It doesn't have to be a real goal. It can just be an imaginary one, practicing using the framework and the different steps in the different frameworks so that we can figure out what is the best framework for you. What is the best goal setting method, process, framework, procedure, whatever you want to call it, but what works best for you, because you want to carry that with you going forward. It's really interesting as I was reading through and documenting these different frameworks and brainstorming the list. I'm like, I do kind of some of all of these, and I create my goals and my objectives, and then I go about achieving those things in a way that combines, I like to think, the best of all of these different techniques. And so that's what I want you to do. I'm going to share the different frameworks. We're going to practice doing it, setting a goal every day, following that framework. And it might not be a goal you stick with. It might be a framework that you don't end up using or liking, but I want us to all practice and try on the different possible tools so we can figure out what works for us. And what works for us right now this year during the challenge might work for us during the challenge, but next year or in the future, we might decide, hey, I'm always going to use SMART goals. That happens to be the framework number one we're going to talk about today. Why? Because it's the one that comes to mind for most people that have ever had access to the internet, because it's been around since 1981. It was actually invented or created or made up or written about and documented by George Duran, Arthur Miller, and James Cunningham. I think they were management consultants. I could be wrong, but I believe that they were, and they created this SMART goal system that they went out and they talked to different businesses, and it caught on because it was exposed to a lot of people. What does SMART mean? SMART is an acronym for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. Now, you can do smarter goals where you add evaluate and readjust. So I'm going to do an example of this. I just thought of one this morning before I started to roll film. And I said, okay, I want to lose 30 pounds for specific 30 pounds of excess fat. I don't want to lose muscle. I want to lose 30 pounds of excess fat, because guess what? Over COVID and everything, I have accumulated, I consider 30 extra pounds of excess fat in places on my body that I don't want it to be. So measurable, yes, we can tell if we're reaching the goal, which is to lose 30 pounds. Actually, I'll get to time bound, but we can measure it. We can measure pounds, right? How many pounds did I actually lose? If by the date, which will be time bound, I've set for myself, I haven't achieved it, and actually we'll do milestones and checks along the way. But is it achievable? Absolutely, positively, because I could probably lose more than 30 pounds and I would be just fine. Is it realistic? Yes. And a lot of time bound, which is the T in SMART, determines whether your goal is realistic or not. If I say I'm going to make $1 million by Friday and I've never made $1 million before, that's not realistic. What's today? Tuesday. No, not realistic. Unless I win the lottery, right? Maybe I buy a Wednesday lottery ticket and I win. So anything is possible, right? Anything is possible, but not necessarily realistic. I'm going to evaluate that. How am I going to evaluate it? And I put time bound is by my heart surgery. Now here's the tricky part of that. My heart surgery could be anywhere from April to August or September. It's not scheduled because I have to wait for my internal cardiac device to fail. I think it's 3 to 5 times before they'll actually allow me to get it replaced. Crazy, right? Good thing I don't depend on it for pacing and things like keeping my heart going. Mine's like an insurance policy. But I'm going to evaluate that goal. So there's plenty of time, right? But it is specific. Now, if something happens and my heart surgery gets moved up to February, will I make that goal? I don't know. I might not, because I'm going to set plans in place for June. Let's say June. I'm going to do that right now. June 1st. Now I've got a really time-bound specific date, right? And I want it to be specific and measurable. Now, if I want to make smarter goals, and I'll share one other twist to this because I didn't talk about it. I planned out all the frameworks that I want to talk about, and this one I missed because it's a lot like SMART, but it's called SMIRT. And instead of having realistic goals, and I actually prefer this one. I say, and the SMART model calls for, and I can't remember who invented it, I'd have to research it, unrealistic goals, meaning super giant, pie in the sky, shoot for the moon, shoot for the stars, unrealistic goals. So I want to make $1 billion for the vast majority of us is a totally unrealistic goal. But if you're setting SMART goals, that might be one of your goals, or that's just a crazy example. And then E is evaluate for smarter goals. If we're going to evaluate, that means we're just going to set up periodic checks to determine if we're reaching that goal or not. So for me, I'll do a weekly weigh-in. Probably, I didn't pick what day, but I'll pick a day of the week, and every day, same time every day, say same time every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. I'm going to write that down. Sunday mornings at 7 in blue so I can see it. Sunday a.m. 7. I will do a weigh-in, and then I'll chart and graph and keep track of my progress. And the R in SMARTER stands for readjust, or I guess I could think of other things, but SMARTER fits. So readjust means we're going to look at our progress and say, are we moving toward what we want or away from what we want? If we're moving toward it, we keep going, we keep doing what we're doing. We do lessons learned along the way. And if we're not, if we missed it for some reason, we're going to say, okay, well, what happened during this last week that I missed my target goal? So I'm going to divide that 30 by how many ever weeks there are between now and then. And that tells me how much per week I need to lose. And if I haven't hit my week target, then I'm going to have to readjust what's going on. So what's our action item today? Pick something, anything, any area or aspect of our lives. Remember, we've got physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, financial, relationships, contribution, and communications, and confidence. Just pick one, pick a goal, think of something that you want, and then do this, which is exactly what I did this morning. Do specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-bound, and for your own benefit, do evaluate and readjust. What would you do? How can you see you're creating a structure, a framework, a process for achieving this goal, right? That's the power of SMARTER, and SMART goals, depending on what motivates you or not. Some people have to have realistic goals because if it's too unrealistic, they just quit and give up. Other people, like me, have to have unrealistic goals because that motivates me and drives me and reminds me that as I achieve my interim goals, I'm moving toward this big lifelong legacy goal. So that's it. Any questions, hit me up. Otherwise, I'm excited to see your SMART goals and what you come up with. I'd like if you would share them. You can share them with me privately if you don't want to share them in the group, but it's awesome when we share and learn from one another. All right, have an awesome day, and I'll, of course, be with you tomorrow with another goals framework.